Salutations, tubers. Welcome again to the layout for episode 2 of A History in O-Gauge. This time around we'll be covering the post-war era of O-Gauge trains. This lasted roughly from the end of World War II in late 1945 till about the middle 1960s, when most of the big names in toy train manufacturing got sent for one heck of a loop, but I'll be discussing that a little bit more in detail a little bit later in the video. As you can see, things are looking a bit different this time around. Not quite so colorful and pretty as in the post-war period. It was pretty well when most trains were black, unless it was a diesel or some specialty set, and the construction material switched from tin-plated steel to die-cast metal and plastic. Of course, as they always say, always an exception to every rule. So here at the back, we have this. Now, for those of you who were present for the last episode in the series, you might be wondering, well, hey, what's that little tin plate train doing sitting there if this is the post-war era? Well, as I mentioned in the last video, there were some manufacturers who stuck to making tin plate long after the era was long considered dead and buried by everybody else, and this happens to be one of them. This particular train is a Marx train. Now, for some of you, you might not have heard Marx before, but I'll bet you'll have heard of one of their products, Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Marx was the company that developed that particular little gem. It's being made by somebody else now, but it was originally developed by Marx. Now, and they also did the Big Wheel, Great Garloo, a few other toys, but not really a train company per se. They were more into just toys, and their penchant was taking existing toys, at least in the beginning, from other manufacturers, reworking them a bit, and then turning them into hits. Like the Yo-Yo would be one of them. Louis Marx had a bit of a knack for doing that. But anyway, it didn't take them too long to get into trains. They started by acquiring the old Joy line tooling, and they pretty well moved on from that. And they lasted a little bit later into the post-war period. They were still selling trains in the 1970s, I believe. I've seen a few commercials from that period. And one little interesting fact about Marx is the Lionel and American Flyer tend to get all the glory, but Marx outsold them by sheer volume several times over. They did not have quite as much quantity, not quality, quantity, in variety in their train sets. But their main philosophy was you get more toy for your buck, and quality is not negotiable. So definitely the poor guy's champion in this particular era, particularly when we have all the Lionels and American Flyer sold for quite a lot of money back in those days. Very expensive toy for the time. Well, let's see. Oh, here we go. Lose my own head if it wasn't attached. Just as a comparison, to just see how different everything is, we have the little 257 back here saying hello to all the young bucks, showing the contrast between the old tin plate style and the post-war. Another big name, big thing to change in the post-war period, what came with this particular engine. This is the Pence Turbine, and its big innovation was smoke. We finally got puffing smoke. It wasn't, it should be mentioned that this particular engine was made pretty well almost to the end of the post-war period. In fact, there are many makers who are still making turbines to this day. And this isn't the first one. This is actually about mid-post-war. It's the 027 version, but in most respects identical. Well, anyway, about the smoke, it has a little heating element in there. Originally, it was a light bulb. The idea is you put a little white pellet down there and the heat would melt it, and has a little bellows that pumps up past this bulb or this heating element and makes the little puffs of smoke. Nowadays those pellets are kind of hard to come by unless they're remanufactured, so it is okay to use smoke fluid with these. Just use a couple of drops, works just as well. Another friend to the average person was this engine. This is a Scout. This particular one's a 2034, another mid-post-war train. This is what Lionel included in most of their starter sets. Fairly basic, just a headlight, no smoke, no whistle, but a very good runner, very fast. Have to be careful when I'm running this one, because if you go too fast, you're going to flip right off the rails. But in general, this is one of my favorite eras of O-Gauge, because American manufacturing, mass production was second to none. You certainly paid a lot, but you certainly got your money's worth, because any one of these fine engines, given half a chance, will probably pull a battleship if I really wanted to. Very, very spectacular. And all the accessories, like in the background, we've got the oil derrick, the gantry crane, the operating water tower, the icing house, the sawmill. Spectacular accessories. So, if it was so great, what caused it to stop? Well, in a word, Sputnik. Those of you who are the younger members of the audience, if you've ever seen Toy Story 2, you might know how Stinky Pete tells Woody all about after Sputnik launched, cowboy toys pretty well just went away. And it was not quite overnight, but it was very, very drastic. People's tastes changed. Space toys, robots, let's see, what else was really popular? Ray guns, that sort of thing, came to prominence, and toy trains kind of seemed a bit passé. Oh, slot cars. Slot cars was a big thing when the post-war era was winding down. And from there on, we started seeing the toys that weren't packaged in the big, beautiful boxes. They were in little blister packs and stuff. And it kind of makes my heart break a little, knowing we'll never see something like this ever again. This is definitely something from the old days. But still, definitely a great era. Anywho, before I get too mopey, as per usual in this little line of videos, I will be closing out by showing a few examples of these trains running. If you have any comments, questions, want me to do another video where I go into further detail, drop me a line down in the comments section. So until then, I will wish you a good day. But the next one in the series will be the MPC era. It was kind of the almost death and then the rebirth for O-Gauge. So until next time, I'll see ya. sweet as a nut.